Alright, double honors to the apostles of GMS. Honest you brothers will be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Alright, you know, as always, man. Alright, you're seeing what's happening out there, which I'm going to get into some articles and that a little bit later on, or maybe immediately off of the back of it, man. And what you're seeing is a situation where everything that's happening, everything that you're seeing within your so-called media and news and so on and so forth is gearing us to go what we know in the scriptures as the third war, alright? So what the Lord's are getting ready to happen out here is what we know in the scriptures as the third war, right? Which is what's known in this world as the third world war, right? Let me get the scripture right quick, right? Because everything goes back down to prophecy, what the Most High prescribes is going to happen in the future. And we know through the scripture in the book of Isaiah, right? Book of Isaiah pretty much says, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth, it shall not return unto me void. Alright? And so the Lord spoke about the war, right, which is the third war that you're gonna have pretty soon. Alright, the scriptures talk about a third war, and guess what? The word of the Lord is not gonna the word of the Lord is not gonna return unto him void, man. Alright? Right, so let me try to find this scripture right quick and then bring it out. So it's the book of Revelations, the 11th chapter on the 14th verse. It says the second war is past. All right, so you had World War I, all right, and you had World War II. And the major players of those two wars was the Germans, all right, the so-called United States, and Russians, right, the so-called United Kingdom, the French, all right. Which all of those nations are known within the scriptures as what as the last kingdom that was going to be set up upon the face of the earth, going back onto the dream that Daniel broke down, whereby you had it to where you had the kingdom that was the head, the gold, all right, which was the Babylonians, because their kingdom was full of all kind of splendor and pleasure, all right. Then following that, you had the kingdom of silver, which was the Medo-Persian Empire, right, where you had the Medes come up first. And after them, you had the Persians come up after them. And one of the major kings that you had around about that time was the man known as Xerxes, all right, or Ahasuerus, all right. And pretty much under his rulership, he put together the greatest army. I think it was something like 1 million man army or something ridiculous. That he had one of the greatest, in terms of number, greatest armies, right up until this point where you got it to where the so-called Moabites, which are the Chinese, rather more the so-called Chinese, which are the Moabites, right? I've got an army of the same magnitude, all right? But pretty much underneath him, he thought he could conquer the whole known world, and at the time he did. But the Most High sent the man, you know, as Alexander the so-called Great, and he defeated him. Because that goes back onto what the blessing that Esau got from his father Isaac, all right, which was the sword. And the modern day sword now is the so-called ICBM nuclear missile. All right, but here's the trump card. What does it say in the book of Daniel, the 2nd chapter, 44th verse? In the days of these kings shall the Most High set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed and shall not be left to other people. All right, so you're seeing it where, you know, the elite banking families, they're trying to achieve their so-called new world order and all of that. All right, and they're getting to the precipice of it. They got all the technology they need to bring forth the RFID chip, which is the marketplace. Right, they got all of the technology they can, where they can mentally enslave these people. In fact, these people are mentally enslaved. Right, they're out here going out shopping, right, so they can celebrate really what's a heathenistic festival. All right, the festival that they're about to celebrate is not spoken about within the scriptures. All right, right, but that's the vibration that the elites lead these people to get into, right, into demon worship. All right, idol worship, all of that. That's what these people are really into, and that all goes back onto the elite banking families and what they want you to do, which is really to initiate you without you realizing. That's why you have what's known as TV programming, of which TV programming is set forth to program your mind, to program your mental. All right, that's why you have the word government, to govern the mental, right, to govern the people's minds, to control the people's minds. All right, that's why the scripture really goes into a dictatorship, because when the Most High sets up his 613 laws, statutes, commandments, those were put forth so that when a dictator right, came into place, he can enforce those laws, and anyone that should rise up against the laws of the Most High, his laws, which ultimately goes back onto the laws of the scriptures, which are the laws of the Most High. And one thing to bear in mind at this point is what it says in the book of Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter and the 13th verse. Here's the conclusion of the whole matter: fear the Most High and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. All right, so anyone that was to rise up against those laws, statutes, commandments that the Most High set forth, right, they were to be destroyed. Case in point, the book of Amos, the 9th chapter and the 8th verse, it says, the eyes of the Lord power upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from off the face of the earth, saving utterly I will not destroy the house of Jacob. Now what does that go to prove? That the Most High, although he didn't institute the laws to all of these different people you got out here, although he didn't do that, he's still going to judge them for the wickedness that they're doing. Hey, a good point of that was Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, the Lord's statutes, commandments, were, like it says in Psalms 147th chapter and the 19th verse, were given unto Jacob, right, which is the Israelites, which is the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, right. But ultimately, if you got a society that's doing wickedness, the Most High is going to, attribute to them judgment, man. Right. That's why Sodom, Gomorrah, and Babylon, those were set forth as an example of what not to do. Right, the book of 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, talks about that. So here's what it says within the book of Revelations 11:14 says, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. All right, so it's coming quickly. All right, although it tarry, because the scriptures talk about it tarrying, man. The scripture talks about, it looks like it's heating up, then it cools off. Looks like it's cooling off, then it's heating up again. All right, but what you find out within these different media streams, right, these different so-called alternative news and so on and so forth, is that really this thing is heating up. Now what they tried to do in your so-called mainstream media is to make it look like it's cooling off. Right, for instance, the thing that you had it to where them Russian planes, or as you're gonna see in these different in these articles I'm gonna bring out, man. As you're gonna see in these different articles, right, pretty much what the so-called Western media plays on is the foolishness of the people. All right, they play on the fact that the vast majority of the people are stupid. Right, they're into folly. Hey, the scripture talks about that in the book of. This
guy talks sense.
Thank you. All right, the scripture talks about what it says in the book of Ecclesiastes. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says pretty much that folly is set into great dignity, man. All right, that's what you got it to where you have a video up on YouTube with all kind of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding on it. And they might get 200 views, 100 views, 150 views. All right, but you get a video where someone's doing something stupid, man. All right, you'll get all kind of millions and millions of views, man. Right. Oh, okay. So another point that comes to mind is the music industry, because the people really vibe for what the musical industry is all about, man. All right. So you got this dumb, docile vibration going forth in the so-called music industry, because I say it's so-called because really music finished off in the 70s, man. What these people are listening to right now, man, that's not music, man. All right. But these people put those so-called artists and so on and so forth upon a high pedestal. Why? Because folly is set in great dignity, man. All right, and that's how we know really. That's how we know really we're getting into the latter times when the Most High is going to come back and destroy this place. Because what does the scripture say? All right, pretty much something to the effect of when the music, right, comes down to when the daughters of the music should start to fail, something to that effect. That's when you're going to know that we're in the time where the highest is going to begin to visit the world, man. All right, that was one of the indicators. Another indicator was the amount of scoffers that was going to come in the last days. The 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, the 3rd verse talks about that, man. Maybe the 2nd chapter, so lucky. All right, it says, "Behold, in the last days, perilous times is going to come." All right, and you're going to see, when they say peace and safety, that's when the perilous times is going to come. And they're in a state of peace and safety right now. But what you're gonna see as a result of the so-called Federal Reserve raising up the interest rates on those loans that people have been taking out, and it's only only 0.2, only a quarter of a percentage point, right? It's only a quarter of a percentage point, but that knock-on effect that it's gonna have upon all of them different people, all right?
Hi, you're right. I'm just.
All right, yeah, I'm just speaking about what's going out in the world.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know about the Federal Reserve raising up the interest tax?
Right.
You know about that?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
I do listen to the news, I do.
So what do you think is going to come as a result of that happening? All right. When you have a central bank,
Yeah.
which you know what the English central bank is? The Bank of England.
All right, yeah.
Yes, the Bank of England, as a result of the Federal Reserve raising up their interest rate.
They now have to raise up there, yeah.
Well,
Which
they're
then
going to free
raises
them
our...
to. Because if the Federal Reserve does it, if the Bank of England does it first,
Yeah.
the Federal Reserve is going to, or the US dollar is going to have more power. So they have English bank has to
They
do
have to do
after.
it, yeah.
All right. So as a result of doing that, you got what's known as bank loans.
Right.
So
Yeah, I do.
I don't know what company you work for, but
I
whatever
work for
company.
NHS.
So NHS,
Yeah.
the NHS gets money,
From
a
the
bank,
government.
from the
No,
government.
They get from the government.
but that money is on a loan.
Yeah.
But the interest rate has gone up.
Oh no.
So the
it's all...
loan that your company has taken out, the interest on it is going to go up.
Yeah.
So they're going to be making cutbacks. People are going to be losing jobs.
Oh, I know.
All right. All right. So you're going to have it to where people's going to be losing jobs as a result of that interest rate going up.